always to be proactive and do something about it. But now let's take a step back and look at why things are this way from a natural point of view. All men are driven to bang them, and women are driven to still bang but be very careful and selective. This video we're going to make an introduction about day game, and we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of day game. And pretty much, as we'll see, there's pretty much all advantages. Now, first of all, I'd like to point out why this day game your upper hand in the sex game. Women have always, even if they're not very attractive, the upper hand because they're the gatekeepers, even to this day, to sex. So there's men are the ones who are actually banging anything that moves, and women have to be more selective from a biological point of view. And there's nothing that can change this with current technology and current social conditioning and so on. So you can expect this to carry on for all throughout your life, even with artificial intelligence, whatever is going to happen later on. So women get heated up by men constantly. They always get men trying to get on dates with them in order to bang them, whereas the same does not happen to men. If men do nothing, if they're just pretty on the street, nobody approaches them, nobody tries to talk to them on a party or chat them up in a club. That does not normally happen in most cases. It can happen, but it does happen very sporadically and very randomly, and you cannot rely on this alone in order to have the selection that you want and find the partner that you're looking for. Absolutely not. So you've got, as a man, always to be proactive and do something about it. But now let's take a step back and look at why things are this way from a natural point of view. If you look at the male anatomy and how it works, we've got many thousands, I can't remember how, hundreds of thousands of sperm in a single ejaculation. So we're able to impregnate pretty much anything that moves. Anything that is a human, we can impregnate really quickly, very easily, and we are designed to do that. Whereas women are designed differently, are designed to, because basically women only ovulate once in a month, can only get pregnant once in a month. So, and then once they get pregnant, they carry the child, they are the vulnerable party in the game, and then they may need to raise the child themselves. So if you look at it from an evolution point of view, when we're only living in small tribes, if a woman actually banged a man who was not taking care of her, then she would have been, or wouldn't have enough high social status. The pregnancy may not have, maybe she would have had people beating her up or going through hard times and so on. Whereas if you banged the ringleader and the ringleader thought the child was his, then she would have been protected and she would have had more chances to have the child brought up well to the next generation. So, and therefore women only got one egg and men have got so many sperms, is incredible. So basically men normally don't hesitate to bang a woman. Women have to be very selective in banging, who they bang, because of the way they're actually built. Because if they only have one egg, they can get impregnated once, and they have to do it. They have to carry that baby for the 9 months, and then they have to give birth to that baby, and then the baby is going to be vulnerable, and she's going to be vulnerable as well. So from a biological point of view, she needs to be far more careful than what we are as men. And therefore, her biological drives are very strong, but she has got to be, biologically speaking, on the careful side. So we've got to be very careful and very selective. So the way she feels from a sexual point of view reflects that very much. So she's not easy to have sex immediately. She have to assess that the person is trustworthy, and she does all these things subconsciously, and it's the genetics that dictate that behavior. She cannot explain her emotions because it comes from ingrained habits. From ingrained habits. So the game works very differently. So women, from a pragmatic point of view, in their prime, especially if they're a bit good looking, a bit outgoing, they get so many men hit them up, is incredible. Men do not. If men do nothing, they don't. So the abundant side of the game is always women, because all men are driven to bang them, and women are driven to still bang but be very careful and selective. And that would have been a problem if we were born in previous societies, but nowadays we're quite lucky to be born in a very different society where we're living in big cities, and the legislation is very different to what the social norms were before many years ago. Say for example, 1,000 years ago, if you banged the wrong woman, you very likely would have been beaten to death, or even by talking to the wrong woman, you could have been beaten to death. And therefore, you by default as a man have this instinct of being very careful who you're talking to and who you flirt with, and be very scared about starting flirting with a woman that you're not sure about. And that comes from the genetic drive of self-preservation, because the men who were not careful about that in the past got killed, and they couldn't too early, and they could not pass on their genetics to the next generation.